The reason I originally reached out to the antis in spite of all of this was because I just sort of run out of fucks.
Greetings, netizens of YouTube. The purported red-pilling of Laci Green, or anger at her alleged attempt at blue-pilling sections of the anti-feminist community, has likely come to your attention. There have been many videos about it. In plain English, this means that Lacy is either trying to convert anti-fems to feminism, or has abandoned feminism and is flirting with anti-feminism and embracing those who have participated in abusive behaviour online. This comes following her discussion with Blair White and friendship with the anti-feminist YouTuber Chris Straughan. I will place those arguments to one side and bring to the table my own suspicions about the issue by answering Lacy's questions posed in her own video.
My question for you all, antis, what have your interactions been like with feminists and feminism? Is there any sort of, key moment that caused you to feel strongly against feminism? Feminists, what's your interaction been like with antis? What do you wish that they understood that you don't feel like some of them are seeing? If you're not a YouTuber, you can hit me up on Twitter. That's where I'm having this conversation outside of YouTube.
Dear Lacy, first off, I have to take issue with your question. The world isn't as binary as you have categorized it. It's a pity that you didn't address your question to what is probably the majority of the people in the world. But I can try to answer on their behalf. Well, not really. This is just my not so humble opinion. I neither consider myself to be an anti-feminist nor a feminist. If pushed, I might call myself an ally of feminists or a non-feminist. Although the former makes me sound as if I will always side with feminism, and the latter suggests I feel indifferent to it. Oh well, let's crack on, shall we? My first interaction with feminism. Well, until I was 15 or 16, I had no idea what feminism was. And then, like a good little nerd, I started reading my father's copies of the Sunday Times. There was a debate about feminism going on, and I remember being given the impression that American feminism sounded scary and too radical for my young taste. All of a sudden, feminists such as Camila Pagila and Katie Rofi were having papers and books reviewed, or giving interviews and speaking out about their ostracization within the academic/feminist community. There was talk at the time of post-feminism. My own life experience at that point led me to believe that discrimination against women wasn't an issue, and I felt sympathetic towards them, quite probably also because the Times wasn't giving us the other side of the story. There is one thing that stood out back then that made me feel that Pagila was on my side. She spoke at the time she was riding on her bike and saw a beautiful girl and crashed into a lamppost. As a teenager, I completely related. I mention this story because it stuck in my mind, but also because I think that sometimes irrelevancies like this can help a person pick a side. It's as banal as picking a side because the person on that side is attractive. Or in my case, finds attractive what you find attractive. In addition to one's having been primed into supporting that person because of the one-sided information that you have received, coupled with very little experience of the real world. Propaganda plus personalization can be a heady brew. My interactions with feminists are mostly positive. The experiences I've had show me that feminists have their heart in the right place, even if in my opinion they get it wrong on certain issues. Of course it depends what types of feminists we're talking about, but this isn't that type of video. But I do want to chuck the odd bone. I have crossed paths with the rare feminist who thinks that doxing is legitimate as a means of revenge or defense. But this is honestly very rare. Most feminists or people in the social justice community, for example, are kind of hippie-ish at heart. They want change for a better world. If they become angry, it's because they've been ground down by injustice of one kind or another. I have also been attacked by a very small number of feminists, usually in the YouTube comments section or the very rare Twitter interaction, who have taken issue with something I've said. But I've never hidden the fact that I represent my own opinions and experiences. So no, I have never for a moment thought that feminism or particular feminists are mean, so I'm going to be an anti-feminist now. For me, that isn't the way a mature adult goes about forming an opinion. I'd say the one thing that worries me about some feminists is not appreciating that society is moving in the right direction. I sometimes get the sense that no matter how much progress is made, that once full equality is achieved, and one day it will be achieved, around the world, that some feminists won't be able to let go. However, I believe people that are never satisfied are useful or crucial in the earlier days of any movement against injustice. But this character trait can make an individual unhappy and unable to recognize when success has been achieved. What have my interactions been like with antis? Well, that leans quite heavily towards the negative side. I don't naturally take a hostile position towards people before knowing them, but I can say that many antis have taken an aggressive stance towards me without even bothering to get to know my views. Yes, my YouTube name is provocative, so there is that. But it doesn't say much for the intelligence levels of people who decide what you believe based on your username, rather than on what you say in your videos. And I don't mean random interactions on YouTube. I mean people coming to my videos where they can see that my positions are reasonable and relatively moderate. Then they, air quotes, accuse me of being a feminist, ask for examples of patriarchy, want to argue about the wage gap, where again I take a moderate position, tell me how I disregard men's issues, etc., etc. I've had threats, abuse, misrepresentation, false accusations, but hey, I'm not complaining. Many have had worse experiences on YouTube. But almost all of the nastiness I've had on YouTube comes from antis or third-party trolls, who share some crossover with antis. I can also tell you that I've had numerous friends in what is loosely called the social justice community doxxed, threatened, and had online mobs gone after them, or have been driven from YouTube through fear or intimidation. This stiffens my resolve, but I don't adopt the reactionary kraut and tea formula of collective responsibility of an entire community. Too much time has been frittered away on YouTube over the past 2 years, and I can say that both sides do not indulge equally in dogpiling as you implied in your video. For whatever reason, it seems that anti-feminists are far more likely to dogpile or make insulting comments on somebody's appearance, for example. That's not to say that my experience of anti-feminists is all bad. I have had quite a few positive interactions with antis on YouTube. In my experience, these tend to be older antis who are better equipped for individual thought and rise above tribalism. More than this, I'm on the lookout for reasonable, intelligent antis to subscribe to or to potentially chew the fat over with. Suffice to say, I don't get many invitations. What do I wish they understood? Well, this doesn't apply to the older ones with life experience so much, but what I wish the antis understood is that the type of feminism they fear so much is not pervasive in real life. Feminists don't actually want to eradicate sex or gender, as one anti told me recently in a YouTube comments section. On YouTube and other social media, certain antis that seek to sow fear for their own agenda, whether it be for YouTube status or profit, are trying to manipulate them. Go out in the real world and you will struggle to meet a blue-haired lesbian who wants to drink your male tears. In fact, the chances are you will never meet one in your entire life. Go to college as I did, and the chances are you will never so much as hear of a safe space, let alone see one. You're more likely to be befriended by more women than at any time in your life than to be falsely accused of rape or to be accused of wanting to repress women. I've always been of the opinion that it's ridiculous to set too much store in the behaviour of individuals you come into contact with on the internet. To give an example, if we go the reactionary route about the YouTube skeptic community, then it would be easy to think that skepticism is tribalistic, poorly researched, or utterly fixated with defeating the left. It's possible to cross paths with hundreds of partisan, quote, skeptics, unquote, or anti-SJWs online, but this does not change my mind that being a skeptic, or more precisely, possessing a skeptical mindset, is a bad thing. Quite the contrary. The way that people latch on to these types of respected labels reminds me to redouble my efforts in making sure I'm not a pawn in somebody else's game. Anyway, I know you're never going to see this, which brings me to 2 questions of my own. Why is it that you are only interested in discussing these issues with anti-SJWs and not also discussing them with feminists or non-feminists for that matter? And why is it that you are only interested in discussing feminism with highly viewed YouTubers? As much as YouTube can be a good place to discuss issues, it functions as a popularity contest, with financial benefits for those that win. If you are only interested in discussing these issues with large anti-SJW or anti-feminist content creators with E-celebrity status, then people like myself are going to doubt that talking about feminism is your primary motivation. There is a very easy way to prove us wrong. Speak to reasonable people with good arguments, regardless of how popular they are. Why not, for example, discuss with Skeptorr or Noel Plum on the one side, and somebody like Kristi Winters, Logan, and Garrett on the other? Or if they're too formal for you, then have a chat with Riley Dennis to get her input. Even if you don't yet know who some of these individuals are, it's not difficult to look them up. I'm confident all of them would love an opportunity to talk to you. But I'm hearing on good authority that the feminists who are reaching out to you are being ignored or rebuffed by you. In public you have announced an open dialogue. In private you are far more selective in your criteria for who gets to talk to you. As it is, your approach looks a little too much like, if you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. The E-Celebs on YouTube combine forces, share subs and views. Well, bully for them. I'm all for getting along, but I'd rather have honest disagreement when integrity is maintained, instead of participating in a top-down charade for the benefit of those at the summit. Fucking hell. This is like pulling fucking teeth.